What if the very thing that has been exhausting you is not a sign that you are failing, but a sign that you are finishing? Let that question sit with you for a moment. Do not rush past it. Do not answer it with logic or with the part of your mind that has been managing and explaining and holding everything together for so long. Just let it land somewhere deeper, in the place where you have been quietly carrying things that no one around you fully sees. Because here is what I know about you. From the outside, your life looks like someone who is coping. You get up, you show up, you handle what needs to be handled. You smile when it is required, and you hold yourself together in rooms where falling apart is not an option. You have become remarkably good at functioning. And most people looking at your life from the outside would not guess the weight of what you are actually carrying on the inside, because you have learned to carry it quietly, and you have learned to carry it alone. But on the inside, something is different. On the inside, there is a tiredness that sleep does not fix. There is a longing that no achievement has been able to quiet. There is a part of you that has been praying and believing and trying and holding on and doing all the right things and still waking up in the morning to the same unanswered silence. And recently, something has shifted, not toward giving up entirely, but toward something harder to name. A kind of holy exhaustion, a surrender that does not feel like defeat, but feels strangely like the edge of something new. Beloved and chosen one, you are in exactly the right place. This message was not assembled by accident, and you did not find it by chance. Something greater than coincidence guided you here today, and if you will stay with me for the next few minutes, I believe something is going to shift in you. Not because of anything I say, but because heaven has already spoken over your life, and what heaven speaks does not return empty. There are signs that only chosen ones carry, and I want to name them for you right now because no one else has. The first sign is that your dreams have become more vivid and more urgent in recent weeks. Not just ordinary dreaming, but the kind where you wake up with a feeling you cannot shake, a sense that something is trying to reach you from a place your waking mind cannot fully access. You have had dreams about open spaces, about thresholds, about voices calling your name from rooms you have not yet entered. The second sign is that the frustration you carry does not feel ordinary. It is not the frustration of someone who has simply had a bad stretch of days. It is deeper than that, and it has been there longer than that. It is the frustration of someone who knows, at a level beneath language, that they were made for something more than what they are currently living, and who cannot understand why the distance between where they are and where they are supposed to be has not yet closed. The third sign is that people and places that used to feel comfortable have recently started to feel too small. Rooms that once felt like home now feel like they belong to a version of you that you are quietly outgrowing. Relationships that were once easy now carry a heaviness you cannot explain. Something in you is expanding, and the old containers cannot hold it. The fourth sign is that you keep encountering the same message from different directions. A word someone says in passing, a line from a song playing in the background, a sentence from a book you opened to a random page, a moment in a conversation that stops you cold because it speaks directly to something you have only ever spoken about in the silence of your own heart. These are not coincidences. These are signals. Heaven has been trying to get a message through to you, and it has been using every available channel. The fifth sign is that even in your exhaustion, you have not fully let go. Some part of you, the deepest part, the part that was placed in you before you arrived in this world, has refused to stop believing. Even when your mind was full of doubt, even when your circumstances gave you every reasonable reason to quit. Even then, something in you held on. That is not stubbornness. That is a divine instinct. That is the mark of someone who was chosen before they understood what it meant to be chosen. You are what some would call an earth angel. Not in a naive or sentimental way, but in the truest sense of those words. You are someone who was placed here with a specific assignment, a specific frequency, a specific purpose that the world desperately needs. And the process you have been walking through, as painful and as long as it has felt, has not been a detour from that purpose. It has been the preparation for it. Heaven has not forgotten you. Heaven has not paused you. Heaven has been doing something in you and through you and around you that required exactly this much time and exactly this much difficulty, because what is being built in you is not ordinary, and ordinary processes cannot build it. You are part of a divine plan that is larger than your current moment can contain. And today, something is shifting. The season that has held you in its grip is releasing its hold. The preparation that has felt endless is moving toward its completion. And the one who placed the call on your life, the one who designed your specific capacity for depth and resilience and faith, is speaking a word over you right now that changes everything. You have done enough. Now let heaven take over. You have not been waiting for this moment. This moment has been waiting for you. There is something that happens to chosen ones in the middle of their waiting season that almost nobody talks about. And I want to talk about it with you right now, because I think you have been carrying this without a name for it. And carrying something without a name makes it heavier than it needs to be. It is not just sadness. It is not just tiredness. It is a very specific constellation of feelings that tend to arrive together, quietly, without announcement, and they settle into your daily life in ways that are so subtle you almost convince yourself they are not there. But they are there, and if you are honest with yourself, you have been feeling them for a while now. The first thing that chosen ones in a season of waiting tend to experience is a sudden, unexpected wave of grief about the past. Not the kind of grief that is attached to a specific loss, though that may be part of it. This is a wider grief, a grief about time, about the years that have passed and the things that did not happen inside them. You find yourself sitting in an ordinary moment, maybe in the car, maybe in the kitchen, maybe lying in bed at night when the house is finally quiet, and out of nowhere, a wave of sadness rises up through you, and it is not attached to anything specific you can point to. It is more like your soul is doing an accounting of all the seasons that have gone by, all the hopes that were quietly set down when they did not materialize, all the versions of your life that you once imagined and that have not yet arrived. That wave of grief is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that your heart is honest enough to feel the full weight of what this journey has cost you, and that honesty, that depth of feeling, is part of what makes you who you are. The second thing the chosen ones in a waiting season recognize is that familiar places and familiar people have started to feel strange and heavy in ways they never did before. You walk into a room that you have walked into 100 times. A room that used to feel comfortable and easy, and something about it now feels slightly off, like wearing a coat that no longer fits. You sit across from someone you have known for years, someone you care about, and there is a distance there that was not there before, not because anything happened between you, but because something is happening inside you, and the distance between who you are becoming and who they have always known you to be is beginning to show. This feeling is disorienting. It can make you feel like something is wrong, like you are losing your footing in the relationships and spaces that have always anchored you. But chosen one, this is not loss. This is expansion. You are not losing your people or your place. You are growing beyond the version of yourself that those spaces were built around. And that growth is exactly what was supposed to happen at exactly this point in your journey. The third thing is the dream, or more precisely, the recurring image that appears in different forms across different nights. The unopened door. It may literally be a door in your dream, a door at the end of a hallway, a door in a room you have never been in but somehow recognize, a door that you stand in front of but do not open, or that you reach just as the image fades. Or it may be a different form of the same symbol, a gate, a threshold, a window with light on the other side, a path that leads to a place just out of view. Whatever form it takes, the feeling it leaves when you wake is always the same. The sense that something is very close, that what you have been waiting for is just on the other side of a threshold that you have not yet crossed, that the answer, the breakthrough, the arrival, is near enough to feel, but not yet near enough to touch. These dreams are not your imagination running loose. They are messages. They are the language heaven uses when it needs to reach the part of you that is deeper than your conscious mind. The fourth thing is the repetition. The same message appearing in completely unrelated places in a way that is too specific to dismiss as coincidence. A stranger says something to you in passing that lands like it was meant for you alone. You open a page at random, and your eyes fall on a sentence that speaks directly to the question you have been carrying in silence for months. A song plays that you have not heard in years, and a single line stops you in the middle of what you are doing because it describes exactly where you are right now with a precision that feels almost impossible. This is heaven being persistent. This is the divine refusing to let you miss the message. When the same truth keeps finding you through different doors, that is not a coincidence. That is a confirmation. And the confirmation is this: you are seen, you are known, and you are on the edge of what has been promised to you. Now I want to talk about the pain beneath the waiting, because I think this is where many chosen ones are silently suffering, and I do not want to skip past it in a rush to get to the good news. The good news is coming. But first, let me sit with you in the honest place. There is the insomnia. The nights when your mind will not quiet down because it is still carrying the day, still processing what was said and what was not said, still rehearsing conversations that already happened and preparing for ones that have not yet come. You lie in the dark, and the silence that should bring rest instead becomes the loudest room in your world, full of questions and fears and hopes and doubts, all competing for the same small space inside your chest. You know that sleep matters. You know rest is important, and yet your body lies still while your mind races through everything you cannot control, and you watch the hours pass with a kind of helplessness that is its own form of exhaustion. There is the loneliness, not the loneliness of being physically alone, though that may be part of it. This is the loneliness of being in rooms full of people and still feeling unseen, of smiling through conversations where no one asks the question that would open the door to what you are actually carrying, of having things happening inside you that are too large and too tender to bring into ordinary conversation, because ordinary conversation does not have space for what you are holding. You have learned to be present with people in a way that keeps the parts of you out of reach, not because you are being dishonest, but because experience has taught you that not everyone has the capacity to hold what lives at the deepest level of your story. There is the feeling of being wronged, the slow, quiet ache of having been faithful and overlooked, of having given your best in places that did not honor it, of having been passed by in moments when you deserved to be chosen and were not. This is one of the most painful parts of the waiting season, and it is also one of the most difficult to admit, because admitting it feels dangerously close to bitterness, and you do not want to be bitter. So you carry it quietly, pushing it down each time it rises, telling yourself to be grateful, telling yourself that others have it harder, telling yourself it does not matter as much as it does. But it does matter, and you are allowed to say so. Here is what I want you to understand about all of this. The waiting you have been in is not a punishment. I need you to hear that clearly. It is not a sign that you have done something wrong, that God is displeased with you, that you have missed your moment, or that you are less than others who seem to be moving forward while you stand still. The waiting is not punishment. The waiting is positioning. There is a difference between being overlooked and being positioned. And it is a difference that changes everything about how I interpret the season you are in. Being overlooked means you were considered and passed by because you were not enough. Being positioned means you were deliberately placed exactly where you are by a wisdom greater than any human plan, for a purpose that requires this specific preparation at this specific time. You have not been forgotten. You have been placed. You have not been abandoned. You have been protected. The reason the breakthrough has not come yet is not because it is not coming. It is because what is coming requires you to be exactly who you are becoming right now, and you are not yet finished becoming that person. So when you feel the grief about the time, let it be honest grief. When you feel the heaviness in spaces that used to feel light, trust that your expansion is real. When the dreams come, pay attention. When the repetitions find you, receive them as confirmation. And when the loneliness and the insomnia and the feeling of being overlooked rise up inside you, do not push them away. Bring them to the one who placed you here, because that one knows every detail of what this journey has cost you, and not one moment of it has been wasted. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are being assembled, quietly and carefully, for something that requires every part of what you have walked through to be fully in place before the door opens. And that door is closer than it has ever been. If everything I have just named speaks to something real inside you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in these words, I want you to type the words, "I see it," in the comments right now. Not as a performance, but as an acknowledgement. An acknowledgement to yourself and to the community of chosen ones gathered here, that you see what is happening in your own life, that you recognize the season, and that you are choosing to receive the message that heaven has been trying to get through to you. You are not alone in this room. There are chosen ones all over the world who are watching this message right now and feeling exactly what you are feeling. And the fact that you are here, that you stayed, that something in you would not let you click away, that matters. That is the deep part of you recognizing what is true. If this message is reaching something real in your life, I want to gently ask you to consider supporting this channel so that messages like this one can continue to reach chosen ones who are waking up today without anyone to name what they are carrying. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps this work continue to find the people who need it most. There is a link available for those who feel moved to give. And if that is you, your generosity is received with genuine gratitude. And if today is not the right time for that, the most powerful thing you can do is like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so that when the next message comes, it finds you. Because the next part of what heaven is saying over your life is already being prepared, and you will want to be here when it arrives. Something shifted in you while you were reading those words, did it not? There was a moment, maybe more than one, where something inside you exhaled, where the part of you that has been bracing against the weight of this season finally felt for just a breath that it was safe to set the weight down, that exhale matters, that moment of recognition matters. And now I want to give you something to do with it, because chosen ones are not just people who receive revelation. They are people who respond to it. They are people who take what heaven places in front of them and bring it into their daily life with intention and with practice. So in this part of our time together, I want to give you something specific, something practical, something you can do today, not next week, not when your circumstances change, not when you feel more ready or more rested or more certain. Today, right now, in the life you are actually living, with the schedule you actually have and the energy you actually possess. I want to introduce you to a practice I call the Threshold Protocol. I chose that name deliberately because of everything a threshold represents. A threshold is the place between what was and what is coming. It is the strip of ground you stand on when you are leaving one room and entering another. It is the moment of transition, of crossing, of passage. And that is exactly where you are right now. You are standing at a threshold, and this practice is designed to help you orient yourself correctly at this crossing point, so that you walk through it with awareness rather than stumbling through it by accident. The Threshold Protocol has 3 steps, and all 3 of them can be done anywhere. You do not need a special location. You do not need a quiet room, though quiet helps if you can find it. You do not need any equipment, any skill, any prior experience with meditation or spiritual practice. All you need is yourself, your honest heart, and about 7 minutes of your time. These 3 steps work together as a single movement, each one preparing you for the next, and together they create a kind of inner alignment that opens you to what heaven is already moving toward you. Step 1 is what I call the practice of the averted gift. Before you move into silence or prayer or any kind of intentional stillness, I want you to begin by remembering something specific. I want you to remember something you are grateful for that did not happen. I know that sounds unusual at first. We are accustomed to gratitude practices that ask us to count our blessings, to name the good things that have come to us, to acknowledge what we have received. And that kind of gratitude is real and valuable. But this step asks you to go somewhere different and somewhere deeper. I want you to think about something that you once wanted very badly that did not come to pass. A relationship that fell apart before it became what you hoped. A door that closed before you could walk through it. An opportunity that disappeared before you could take hold of it. A version of your life that you once imagined clearly and then watched quietly dissolve. Now here is the shift I want you to make inside that memory. I want you to consider the possibility, just the possibility, that what felt like a loss was actually a protection. That the door that closed was not closing against you, around you, but guarding you from something that would have taken you in the wrong direction. That the relationship that ended before it could become what you hoped was ending, because what you hoped for in that relationship was actually meant to find you somewhere else, in a truer form, at the right time. That the opportunity that disappeared was making space for an opportunity that carries more of your actual destiny than the one you were holding on to. This is not about forcing yourself to feel positive about painful things. It is about opening your perspective wide enough to consider that the wisdom guiding your life has access to information you do not have. That the one who is writing your story can see the chapter that comes after this one. And sometimes the most loving thing that wisdom can do is remove what you are holding so that your hands are free to receive what is actually coming. Sit with that for a moment. Let one specific averted gift come to mind. Hold it gently. And then, in whatever way feels natural to you, offer a quiet word of gratitude for what it protected you from, even if you cannot yet see what that was. That act of gratitude, directed not at what you received, but at what you were spared, does something profound in your inner landscape. It shifts you from the posture of someone who has been denied into the posture of someone who has been guided. And that shift in posture changes everything about how you move forward. Step 2 is a spoken declaration. And I want you to say it out loud if you possibly can, because there is something that happens when you give voice to truth that does not happen when you only think it. Words spoken into the physical space of your life carry a weight and a reality that internal agreement alone cannot match. The declaration is this, and I want you to say it slowly, with intention, like someone who means every word. The time I am in right now is not ordinary time. It is not the time of waiting without purpose. It is not the time of delay without reason. It is the time of preparation, and preparation is not stagnation. Preparation is movement that has not yet become visible. What is happening in me right now is happening on purpose, and the one who ordered this season is not finished with what this season is building. I release my grip on the timeline I created for my own life. I release the expectation that things should have moved faster, that I should have arrived sooner, that something has gone wrong because the calendar does not match my plan. I align myself with the timing that is greater than my understanding. And I declare that what has been ordained for my life is already in motion, already moving toward me, and cannot be stopped by anything I have walked through or anything I am still walking through. That is the declaration. Say it slowly. Mean it as fully as you can. And if there is a part of you that resists it, if there is a part of you that rises up and says, I do not know if I actually believe that, I want you to say it anyway. Because declarations are not only expressions of what we already believe. Sometimes they are the very instrument by which we arrive at believing. Sometimes we have to speak the truth ahead of our feelings and trust that our feelings will eventually catch up to the truth we have spoken. After the declaration, take a breath. A real breath. The kind that goes all the way down. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the air move into the places in your body that have been holding tension without your even realizing it. Step 3 is 7 minutes of silence, and I want to be very specific about what this silence is and what it is not. This is not the silence of emptying your mind, which most people find impossible and frustrating, and which leads to the experience of spending 7 minutes in an exhausting argument with your own thoughts. This is not a silence that requires you to achieve any particular internal state. This is a receiving silence. This is the silence of someone who has just sent a very important letter and is now sitting quietly, not anxiously, but with an open and expectant stillness, waiting for the reply. During these 7 minutes, you are not trying to do anything. You are simply remaining available. You are sitting or lying still if you need to, with your hands open if that feels right, and you are holding the posture of someone who has done their part and is now allowing the greater wisdom to do its part. You may hear something in that silence, a word, an image, a feeling of warmth or peace or clarity that rises up without you manufacturing it. You may hear nothing at all, and that is equally valid, because the work that happens in 7 minutes of genuine receptive silence is not always work that announces itself in the moment. Sometimes it settles into you quietly, and you discover what it did hours later or the next morning, when you notice that something has shifted that you cannot fully explain. 7 minutes is a very specific number, and I chose it deliberately. There is a reason that 7 minutes is the threshold, and it has to do with something I want to explore with you more deeply in a later part of this message. Something that connects the spiritual practice of receptive silence to what researchers in the field of brain science have discovered about how the human brain enters its deepest states of creativity, intuition, and healing. I will not go into all of that right now because it deserves its own space and its own time. But I want to plant a marker here because when we arrive at that part of this message, I think something is going to connect for you in a way that ties the spiritual and the scientific together into a single coherent picture of what is actually happening inside you during these 7 minutes. And that picture is going to make what you are doing right now feel even more significant than it already does. For now, what I want you to hold is this. The threshold protocol is not a complicated practice. It is not something that requires a significant overhaul of your daily life. It does not demand an hour of your morning or a particular spiritual discipline or any prior experience with contemplative practice. It asks for 3 things: a moment of gratitude for what did not happen, a spoken declaration that realigns your relationship with time, and 7 minutes of open, receptive silence. That is it. 3 things, done with intention, done with honesty, done with the willingness to actually receive what you are asking for rather than simply going through the motions of asking. And I want you to start today, not this weekend, not Monday, today. Because today is the day that something is shifting, and the practice you build on the day of a shift becomes the foundation of everything that comes after it. The chosen ones, who walk fully into their season of arrival, are not the ones who had the most information or the most clarity or the most confidence at the starting point. They are the ones who started, who took the small, practical, intentional step that the moment was asking of them, even when they were not sure exactly where it was leading. They trusted that movement in the right direction, even imperfect movement, even uncertain movement, was better than standing still in the hope that certainty would eventually arrive and make the first step easier. The first step is never easy, but it is always the right one. Take the 7 minutes, do the practice. Let yourself be someone who responds to what heaven has been saying. Let yourself cross the threshold you have been standing in front of. You are more ready than you know. Now I want to tell you something that bridges the practice you just received with something that has been quietly confirmed by science, because I think you deserve to understand not just what to do, but why it works. And I think when you hear this, something is going to click into place inside you that makes the 7 minutes feel less like a ritual and more like a key. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency. That is not a poetic statement. That is not a metaphor dressed up in spiritual language. Researchers who study the human brain at the highest levels of academic inquiry have identified that individuals who consistently operate in states of heightened intuition, deep creativity, and what can only be described as a kind of knowing that goes beyond ordinary cognitive function, these individuals share a measurable, identifiable neurological signature, a specific pattern of brainwave activity that sets them apart from the baseline. And the name researchers give to the highest expression of that frequency is gamma. Gamma brainwaves are not common. They are not the state the average brain occupies during an average day. They are the brainwave pattern associated with what scientists call peak cognitive performances, with moments of sudden insight and creative breakthrough, with the experience of deep connection to something larger than the individual self. They are the brain waves of the eureka moment, the brain waves of the person who solves the problem that no one else could solve, who sees the pattern that everyone else missed, who wakes up one morning with a clarity about the direction of their life that feels less like a thought they had and more like something that was given to them. Gamma is the frequency of the chosen one, and it is not a coincidence that the spiritual identity you carry and the neurological signature that researchers have isolated in high-performing, deeply intuitive individuals are pointing to the same thing. But there is something you need to know about gamma and about the brainwave state that prepares the brain to access it, which is called theta. And this is where the science connects directly to your experience of the last several years and why that experience has been doing something in you that you may not yet have language for. Dr. James Rivers is a neuroscientist who was trained at MIT and whose research has included collaborations with some of the most advanced scientific institutions in the world, including work connected to NASA's studies of human cognitive performance under extraordinary conditions. Dr. Rivers has spent more than 30 years studying the human brain, specifically studying the relationship between brainwave states and human potential. And what he discovered over the course of those 3 decades of research is something that changes the way we understand what a waiting season actually does to the brain of a chosen one. Here is what he found. Theta brainwaves, which operate in the frequency range of 4 to 8 hertz, are the brainwaves most strongly associated with creativity, deep learning, intuition, and the kind of receptive stillness in which genuine revelation becomes possible. Theta is the state young children inhabit almost constantly, which is why children learn so quickly, why their imaginations are so vivid, why they have a natural access to wonder and to the sense that anything is possible. Theta is also the state that most adults have almost entirely lost access to because the demands of adult life, the responsibilities, the stress, the constant noise of obligation and information have pushed the brain into higher frequency states of beta and even high beta, which are associated with analytical thinking, problem solving, and anxiety. The adult brain becomes so accustomed to operating in these higher, more agitated frequencies that it loses its ability to drop into theta, and in losing that ability, it loses access to the deeper layers of creativity, intuition, and receptivity that theta makes possible. But here is where the research becomes extraordinary and where it speaks directly into your story. Dr. Rivers and his team discovered that the seasons of difficulty, of isolation, of being held still when everything in you wants to move forward, these seasons, when walked through with a certain quality of inner honesty and openness rather than sheer resistance, actually create conditions in the brain that support a return to theta. The stripping away of busyness, the quieting that comes from being in a season where external achievement is not available as a distraction, the depth of interior life that develops when you have no choice but to go inward. All of this creates neurological conditions that prepare the brain to access the very frequency that unlocks the gamma state. In other words, the waiting season you have been in is not just a spiritual preparation. It is a neurological one. Your brain has been being prepared for a level of function that it could not have reached without walking through exactly what you have walked through. What Dr. Rivers developed over the course of his more than 30 years of research is an audio protocol that uses a technology called brainwave entrainment to guide the brain into the theta state deliberately, efficiently, and without requiring years of meditation practice to achieve. The technology works through precisely calibrated sound frequencies, including what are called binaural beats and isochronic tones, which are specific patterns of sound that the brain naturally synchronizes with when it hears them. When the brain synchronizes with these frequencies, it is guided into the theta state, and from theta, it becomes able to access gamma, the high-performance, deeply intuitive, creatively explosive state that is the neurological signature of the chosen one, functioning at their full capacity. And the remarkable thing, the thing that sets this protocol apart from everything else in this field, is that it only takes 7 minutes. 7 minutes of listening, with headphones, to an audio track that was designed with extraordinary precision. After more than 30 years of research and thousands of hours of study, 7 minutes that guide your brain into the state that unlocks everything else. That is why I told you in the previous section that 7 minutes was a specific number with a specific reason. The practice I gave you, the 7 minutes of receptive silence, works beautifully on its own as a spiritual practice. But when you pair it with this audio protocol, what happens in those 7 minutes is amplified in a way that the spiritual practice alone cannot replicate, because the audio is doing something at the neurological level that creates the ideal conditions for everything you are reaching, for spiritually to become not just a hope but a lived experience. This tool is called the Genius Wave, and it is the most important practical resource I can place in front of you at this point in your journey. I want to tell you about someone who found this at a moment that sounds remarkably like where you are right now. Her name was Sandra, and she had been in what she described as a fog for nearly 2 years. She was functioning, doing her job, taking care of her family, showing up to her obligations. But inside, she felt like she was moving through water. Her creativity had gone quiet. Her sense of purpose had become dull. She was praying, but the prayers felt like they were hitting the ceiling. She found the Genius Wave on a night when she had decided she was going to finally stop trying to force things and just rest. She listened for 7 minutes before bed. She told me that she did not feel anything dramatic in the moment, just a kind of settling, a quieting she had not felt in a long time. But the next morning she woke up with a clarity about a decision she had been agonizing over for months. Not a forced clarity, not a conclusion she had reasoned her way to, but a knowing that was simply there when she opened her eyes. Within the following 3 weeks, 2 opportunities arrived that aligned directly with the purpose she had been feeling cut off from. She did not chase them. They came to her. There is also the story of Marcus, a man in his mid-40s who had spent years feeling like his best thinking was behind him. He was a creative professional who had lost his creative edge and had begun to wonder if the version of himself who had those ideas and saw those possibilities had simply aged out of existence. He used the Genius Wave for 30 days before he said anything to anyone about it. At the end of those 30 days, he had filled a notebook with ideas he described as the best of his career. Ideas that did not feel like they came from effort but from somewhere deeper, somewhere he had not been able to access in years. He said it felt like a door inside his mind had been unlocked. I know that some of you hearing this right now are thinking that $39 is not nothing. And you are right. It is not nothing. In a season where resources may already feel stretched, where trust has been tested, where you have invested in things before and not seen the return you were hoping for, asking you to spend anything at all requires a level of trust that I do not take lightly. Your hesitation is valid. Your caution is understandable. And I am not going to pretend otherwise, but I want you to consider something. The cost of remaining in the fog for another month, another season, another year is not zero. The cost of your creativity staying quiet, your clarity staying dim, your brain staying locked out of the frequency that unlocks your full capacity, that cost is real, even if it does not show up on a receipt. What is one clear morning worth to you? What is one notebook full of your best ideas worth? What is one door opening in the direction of your actual purpose worth? The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below this video, it is available today for just $39. That is the only place the genuine product exists at that price. And I want to be very clear with you about this. There are imitation products circulating online that use similar language and similar claims, but they do not carry the precision of the research behind the Genius Wave, and they will not deliver what this delivers. Please only purchase through the single link in the pinned comment below. That is the only source I can vouch for, and that is the only place where the 90-day money-back guarantee applies. 90 days. That means you have 3 full months to experience what this does in your daily life. And if at the end of 90 days you do not feel that something has genuinely shifted, you receive your full investment back without question. There is no risk in this. The only risk is in not taking the step. And I want you to know that the window for this pricing is not permanent. The $39 access is available for a limited time and to a limited number of people. Once that number is reached, the price returns to $49, and the link in the pinned comment will reflect that. So if something in you is already saying yes, do not wait for a more convenient moment. The most convenient moment is the one where the door is still open. The Genius Wave is not a replacement for the spiritual practice I gave you. It is the scientific partner of it. The two together, the intentional posture of the threshold protocol and the neurological precision of the audio, create conditions in your inner life that neither one can create alone. And you are in a season where you need every available advantage working in your favor. Before we move any further, I want to stay with you in something that the previous section may have stirred up, because I noticed that as we talked about what is coming, as we began to name the tools and the resources and the possibilities that are moving toward you, something else may have quietly surfaced alongside the hope. A grief that does not have a clean name, a kind of ache that sits just beneath the excitement of good news, because good news, when it arrives after a very long wait, does not always feel purely like celebration. Sometimes it feels like a complicated thing. Sometimes the arrival of what you have been believing for is shadowed by the weight of how long it took to get here and by an honest reckoning with what the waiting cost you. I want to give that honest reckoning its space right now, because I think you deserve that. I think you have spent enough time being told to focus on the future, to keep your eyes on the promise, to not look back. And while there is wisdom in that direction, there is also a kind of violence in moving too quickly past the pain of what this season has actually taken from you. So let us not move too quickly. Let us sit in the honest place for a moment, the way a true friend would sit with you, without rushing you toward resolution before you have had the chance to fully feel what needs to be felt. The years of waiting have taken things from you, real things, tangible things, things that cannot be fully restored by the arrival of what is coming, even though what is coming is real and it is good. And I want to name some of those things plainly, without the cushion of spiritual reframing, at least not yet. The waiting has taken relationships that could have been built. There were people who needed a version of you that was lighter, freer, more present, more available, the version of you that exists on the other side of this season. And because this season has not yet ended, they did not get that version. There were connections that could have deepened if you had not been carrying so much. There were friendships that might have flourished if you had not been so exhausted from the weight of your own unresolved waiting. There were people who reached toward you and found that the best parts of you were being held in reserve for a season that had not yet arrived. And some of those people eventually stopped reaching, and that is a loss that is real, even if it is one that the future can begin to heal. Waiting has taken ground in your career and in your sense of professional self. You had ideas, real ones, good ones, ideas that deserved to be built and launched and shared with the world. And some of them stayed locked inside you because the season you were in did not give you the energy or the clarity or the confidence to bring them out. You watched people around you move forward in ways that felt both inspiring and quietly devastating, because their movement illuminated the distance between where you were and where you believed you were supposed to be. You may have made decisions during this season that were safe decisions, careful decisions, the decisions of someone who was conserving rather than expanding, because conservation felt like the most honest response to a season that offered so little room. And the career you might have built, the professional ground you might have covered, if you had been functioning at your full capacity during these years, that is something worth grieving honestly. The waiting has taken your freedom with your dreams. Do you remember when your dreams were things you spoke out loud? When you could talk about what you believed was coming for your life without immediately feeling the need to hedge it, to soften it, to qualify it with disclaimers that protected you from the vulnerability of being seen hoping for something big. Somewhere along the way, after enough cycles of hope and disappointment, you learned to hold your dreams more quietly. You stopped sharing them as freely. You started whispering them only to yourself, late at night, in the private space where no one could watch you hope and then potentially watch you be disappointed again. The freedom to dream out loud, to let your vision for your life be visible and unguarded and full of its original side. That freedom is something the waiting narrowed, and that narrowing is a real loss. And perhaps most painfully, the waiting has taken something from your faith in yourself. Not your faith in God, or not only that, but your faith in your own perception, your faith in your own sense of calling. Because when you believe something is coming and it does not come, and then you believe it again and it still does not come, and then you adjust and recalibrate and recommit, and still the thing does not arrive, at some point you begin to wonder whether the problem is not with the promise but with the perceiver. You begin to wonder whether you misread something, whether you misheard, whether the certainty you felt was genuine, or whether it was something you constructed out of your own longing. And that doubt, the doubt not about God but about your own inner voice, about your own capacity to accurately perceive what is real and what is coming, that is perhaps the most corrosive thing the waiting can do, because it does not just delay the dream, it undermines the dreamer. I will not rush past those things. I will not tell you quickly that it was all worth it and that everything happens for a reason. Because even if both of those things are true, saying them too quickly is a form of dismissal, and you do not need to be dismissed right now. You need to be witnessed. So I am witnessing it, all of it, the relationships, the career, the dreams you stopped speaking out loud, the faith in yourself that has been quietly eroding under the pressure of a season that has lasted longer than you planned for. All of it is real. All of it mattered. All of it cost you something genuine. And now I want to tell you about a man named Joseph. Not the full story of Joseph, not yet, because the winning part of his story is not what I want to bring to you in this moment. I want to bring you the part that does not often get preached from pulpits, the part that does not make it onto the motivational poster coasters, the part that sits in the middle of his story like a long, dark, unresolved chord, Joseph was a young man who received a dream, a genuine dream, a true vision, a real word about the direction and the significance of his life. And then, almost immediately after receiving that dream, his life went in precisely the opposite direction. He was betrayed by the people who should have been his greatest protectors, by his own brothers, the people who shared his blood and his history, and who, in the logic of any ordinary life, should have been his allies. He was sold. He was taken from everything familiar. He was placed in a context where his gifts, the very gifts that the dream had spoken to, seemed not only irrelevant, but actively dangerous to him. He served faithfully and was falsely accused. He did the right thing and was punished for it. He helped someone who had the power to help him in return, and he was forgotten by that person for 2 full years. 2 years of being forgotten after doing the right thing, after serving well, after exercising his gift in a context that clearly did not honor it. 2 years of sitting in a place he did not deserve to be, holding a promise that must have felt increasingly impossible to reconcile with the reality of his circumstances. I am not going to tell you today what happened next in Joseph's story, because you probably already know, and because knowing the ending too quickly can tempt us to rush past the middle. And the middle is where you are. The middle is what I want to sit with you in right now. The middle, where the dream is still alive, but the evidence for it seems to be moving in the wrong direction. The middle, where faithfulness has not yet been rewarded in any way that the outside world can see. The middle, where you have done everything right and find yourself in a place that feels completely wrong. Joseph, in that middle season, was not less chosen because of what he was walking through. He was not less called. He was not less significant. The dream he had been given had not expired, or been revoked, or been quietly reassigned to someone more deserving. The dream was intact. The call was intact. The plan was intact. The only thing that was not yet intact was the moment of its full manifestation, and that moment was being held in the hands of a wisdom that was operating on a timeline that Joseph's human understanding could not yet access. And here is what I want you to hold, gently, without forcing it into resolution before its time. The things the waiting has taken from you are real losses. They deserve to be named and grieved, and at the same time, and I mean at the very same time, not after, not instead, but simultaneously, there is a wisdom at work in your story that has not abandoned a single part of what was promised to you. The relationships that were not built in this season will be built more truly in the next one, because you will be more truly yourself in the next one. The career ground that was not covered in this season will be covered with a clarity and a purpose that the fog of this season would not have allowed. The dreams you stopped speaking out loud have not shrunk. They have been protected, held in safekeeping by the one who gave them to you, preserved in their full original size, waiting for the moment when the ground of your life is ready to hold them without them being swallowed up by what was not yet held. Prepared, your faith in yourself will come back. Not as a restored version of the fragile confidence you had before this season, but as something tempered and tested and proven. A knowing about your own perception and your own calling that has been refined by fire rather than simply assumed in the absence of resistance. What this season has taken, heaven has noted. Every loss has been witnessed. Every cost has been recorded. And the restoration that is coming is not a simple return to zero. It is an advancement. It is a recompense. It is the kind of fullness that can only be received by someone who has genuinely known what it is to be without. You are almost through the middle. There is a word in the ancient Greek language that I want to give you today. because I believe it holds something that your modern understanding of time does not have room for. And without it, you will keep measuring your life by a standard that was never designed to measure the kind of life you are living. The word is kairos. In ancient Greek, there were two distinct words for time, and the difference between them is not a small grammatical distinction. It is a difference that changes the entire framework through which you understand where you are and what is happening to you. The first word is chronos. Chronos is the time you already know. It is the time on your phone screen and on your wall clock and on your calendar. It is sequential, measurable, consistent, indifferent. Chronos does not care who you are or what you are going through. It moves at exactly the same pace for everyone. Every minute containing exactly 60 seconds. Every year containing exactly the same number of days, regardless of whether those days are full of breakthrough or full of what feels like stagnation. Chronos is the time of schedules and deadlines and anniversaries, and the terrible mathematics of counting how many years have passed since you first believed something was coming. Chronos is the time that has been torturing you. When you lie awake at night and calculate how long you have been waiting, you are doing Chronos math. When you compare where you are at this age to where you imagined you would be, you are using Chronos as your measuring stick. When you feel behind, when you feel like time is running out, when you feel like the window is closing and you are not yet through it, you are standing inside Chronos and using its relentless, indifferent measurement to evaluate a life that was never designed to be measured that way. Because kairos is the second word, and kairos is something entirely different. Kairos is not sequential. Kairos is not measurable in the ordinary sense. Kairos is the word ancient Greeks used for the right moment, the opportune moment, the moment that is not simply the next moment on the calendar, but the moment that has been specifically prepared for a specific event. Kairos is the moment when the arrow is released, and it finds the target not because of when the clock said to release it, but because of a convergence of conditions that made that precise instant the one that was meant. Kairos is the moment when the right word is spoken to the right person in the right context and something shifts that could not have shifted 1 hour earlier or 1 day later. Kairos is not about duration. Kairos is about readiness, alignment, and the wisdom that holds all things together, knowing exactly when the conditions are correct for what has been prepared to be released. You have been living in Chronos time and wondering why God seems to be moving slowly. But God does not operate in Chronos. God operates in Kairos. And from the Kairos perspective, you are not late. You are not behind. You are not a person who has been waiting too long for something that should have come sooner. You are a person who is approaching a Kairos moment, a moment that has been specifically prepared for the specific person you have become through the specific journey you have walked. And a Kairos moment cannot be rushed into existence by human effort or human timeline. It arrives when the conditions are correct, when the person who is meant to walk through it has been made ready to receive it in its full form. This is not a reframe designed to make you feel better about delay. This is a fundamentally different understanding of what time is and how it works when heaven is involved in a human story. You have not been losing time. You have been accumulating the very conditions that make the Kairos moment possible. Every day of the Chronos waiting has been building something in you that the Kairos moment requires. And the Kairos moment, when it arrives, will not feel like something that finally came after too long. It will feel like something that arrived at exactly the right time, even though your Chronos calendar will tell you it took years. Because in Kairos it was always on schedule. This is positioning, not a reward for how hard you tried, not a prize at the end of a performance. Positioning, the careful, intentional placement of a specific person at a specific threshold by a wisdom that has been working in Kairos all along, while you were counting in Chronos. Now I want to give you a second ancient concept, and this one comes not from Greek but from Hebrew, from the ancient language of the scriptures that have been speaking into the human condition for thousands of years. The Hebrew word is kava. It is the word most commonly translated into English as weight, and it appears in one of the most quoted passages of the ancient text, where it says that those who kava upon the Lord shall renew their strength. For centuries, this has been read as a simple instruction to wait passively, to be still, to endure. And while stillness and endurance are part of what kava contains, the full meaning of the word is far more active and far more beautiful than simple passive waiting. Kava, in its original usage, described the act of braiding or twisting multiple strands of cord together into a single rope. It was a craftsman's word, a maker's word. It described a process that required attention, intention, and the application of steady, deliberate pressure over time. The strands being braided were separate and weak on their own. But the process of kava, of twisting them together with care and with persistence, created something that was exponentially stronger than any single strand could be on its own. The rope that emerged from the process of kava could bear weight that would have snapped any individual strand. It could hold under pressure that would have broken any single thread. Now apply that image to the years of your waiting, every strand of your story, every year of difficulty, every season of being held still, every period of isolation and disorientation, and having to go deeper into yourself because there was nowhere else to go. Every experience of trusting when there was no visible evidence to support the trust. Every morning you got up and continued when a part of you wanted to stop. Every moment of choosing faithfulness when unfaithfulness would have been easier. Every one of these is a strand. And the process you have been inside, the process that has felt like waiting and delay, and the maddening stillness of a life that seems to be going nowhere, has actually been the process of kava. The braiding together of all these strands into a rope of character and depth and resilience and capacity that is now at this point in your story strong enough to bear the weight of what is coming. You did not waste those years. Those years were the raw material of the rope, and the rope is nearly complete. You are not delayed. You are being assembled, and what is being assembled in you is not a fragile, provisional version of who you are meant to be. It is the full, tested, proven, deep-rooted version, the version that can carry what is coming without being broken by it, because the process of kava has made you strong enough to hold it. And now I want to bring these two ancient concepts together into the third idea I want to give you today, because by themselves Kairos and kava are powerful, but together they point to something even more specific, something the ancient text calls the appointed time. The appointed time is not a vague spiritual concept. It is a declaration of precision. It says that there is a moment, a specific, actual, real moment in the unfolding of your story that was appointed before you arrived in it. Appointed means set in advance. It means designated, established, confirmed before the clock of your waiting ever began to run. It means that the outcome of your story was not left to chance, or to the performance of your faith, or to whether you did everything correctly during the waiting season. It was appointed. It was set. It was locked in by a wisdom that operates outside of Chronos, and that does not revise its plans based on how difficult the middle of the journey became. The ancient text speaks in one place of a vision and says that though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. That passage has confused many people who read it, because how can something both tarry and not delay? How can something be slow in coming and yet also be on time? The answer is in the distinction between Chronos and Kairos. In Chronos, the vision has tarried, the years have passed. The waiting has been real and long and costly. In Kairos, the vision has not delayed by a single moment. It is arriving precisely when the conditions created by the Kava process are fully in place. It is arriving in the appointed time, which was always the right time, even when the Chronos calendar made it look impossibly late. What God has ordained, delay cannot cancel. The Chronos calendar does not have authority over the appointed time. The number of years that have passed does not reduce the validity of what was spoken over your life. The difficulty of the season does not diminish the precision of the moment that is coming. And the exhaustion you carry right now, the holy exhaustion that this message began, with the feeling of having done enough and being ready to let heaven take over, that exhaustion is not a failure of your faith. It is the signal that the braiding is complete. It is the Kairos indicator. It is the sign that the rope is ready to bear the weight. It is the moment just before the appointed time arrives when everything in you finally stops striving and opens its hands, because that is what you have been moving toward all along. Not a moment of greater effort, not a season of trying harder or believing more intensely or performing your faith more consistently. You have been moving toward the moment of surrender, the moment when you finally say, I have done everything I know how to do, and now I release this into hands that are greater than mine. That moment of release is not weakness. That moment of release is the completion of the Kava process. It is the final strand being twisted into place. It is the rope becoming fully itself. And when the rope is complete, it is ready to be used for the thing it was made for. You are ready. Not almost ready. Not nearly ready. The appointed time is not something you are still working toward. It is something that is already moving toward you. Heaven has spoken. The Kairos moment is at the door. The Kava is complete. And what has been appointed for your life is closer right now than it has ever been before. Something is already moving. I want you to feel that before I say another word. Not as an idea, not as a theological concept, not as something you are being asked to believe in the abstract, but as a present, active, real reality that is already in motion in your life right now, in this moment, while you are sitting or standing or lying, wherever you are as you receive this message. Something has already shifted. The declaration that heaven has spoken is not a future tense statement. It is a present tense reality. And what I want to do in this part of our time together is get very specific with you about what that movement looks like in practical terms. Because chosen ones do not just need spiritual language. They need to know what to watch for. They need to know what is coming. They need to know how to recognize the arrival of what has been promised when it begins to show up in the ordinary texture of their daily life. There is a feeling you may have been noticing recently, and I want to name it before I describe what is coming, because this feeling is itself a sign. It is a feeling that lives just beneath the surface of your exhaustion, underneath the tiredness and the grief and the weight of the waiting. It is a feeling like pressure, but not the bad kind of pressure. It is more like the feeling of something gathering, of something that has been scattered, beginning to collect itself, of something that was diffuse, beginning to concentrate into a point. You may have felt it in the early morning, in those first quiet minutes before the demands of the day begin. You may have felt it in a sudden moment of unexpected clarity in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. You may have felt it as a quickening, a sense of something approaching that you cannot yet see, but can somehow already feel the nearness of. That feeling is real. That feeling is accurate. What you are sensing is the approach of the Kairos moment we spoke about in the previous part of this message. And I want you to trust it, even before the evidence catches up to the feeling. Now let me tell you specifically what is coming in 3 areas of your life, because the movement that heaven has set in motion is not arriving in one dimension. It is arriving in every dimension. It is arriving in your relationships, in your sense of purpose, and in the resources and opportunities that are beginning to align in ways you could not have engineered from where you have been standing. The first area is your relationships, and what is about to happen here is going to be one of the most visible and sometimes most disorienting aspects of this new season. Some people who have been in your life are going to leave. I want to say that plainly and gently at the same time, because I do not want you to be blindsided by it, and I do not want you to interpret it as loss when it is actually a clearing. There are people in your current circle whose assignment in your story was specific to the season you are completing. They were placed in your life to walk with you through the desert, but they do not carry the geography of where you are going. And as you step across the threshold into the next season, you will find that the distance between you and certain people grows in ways that do not require conflict or betrayal or any dramatic falling out. It will simply be a quiet, organic growing apart, like 2 rivers that ran parallel for a long time and are now beginning to curve in different directions. Do not chase those rivers. Do not try to force the parallel to continue when the natural course of things is beginning to diverge. Release those relationships with gratitude for what they carried in the season they were meant for, and trust that what they are making space for is worth the tenderness of the letting go. Because at the same time, and this is the part that will take your breath away, new people are coming, specific people. People who carry the language of where you are going, who have been walking a path that is converging with yours, who will appear in your life at moments that feel too precisely timed to be accidental. These are not random connections. They are Kairos connections. They are the people whose presence in your life was appointed for this season, the allies and the mentors and the collaborators and the companions who were prepared for the version of you that is emerging right now. They will recognize something in you that others have not always been able to see. They will speak to the deepest parts of your purpose without you having to explain yourself in the laborious way you have sometimes had to explain yourself to people whose eyes have not yet been opened to what you carry. When these people arrive, you will know. There will be a recognition that is less like meeting someone new and more like remembering someone you already knew. Pay attention to the new connections that appear in the coming days and weeks. Not every new person who enters your life will be a Kairos connection, but some of them will be, and the way to tell the difference is this. A Kairos connection energizes you at the level of your purpose rather than just at the level of your personality. It leaves you feeling seen in a way that is deeper than being liked. It opens doors inside you rather than simply making your surface life more pleasant. When that quality of connection shows up, lean into it. Do not minimize it. Do not shrink from it out of the old habit of self-protection. Let it be what it is. The second area is your sense of purpose. And here I want to speak to something very specific that many chosen in a waiting season experience, which is the feeling of not knowing what the next step is, the fog of purpose. The question of what am I actually supposed to be doing right now, spoken in the quiet of your own heart with an urgency that has been growing the longer the waiting has extended. I want to tell you that this fog is about to lift, not all at once, not in a blinding rush of sudden certainty that lays out the entire map of your future in a single revelation, but in the way that fog actually lifts, which is gradually, from the edges inward, until one morning you realize that you can see clearly in a direction that was obscured just a few days before. The specific thing I want you to watch for is a single small step that will present itself with a clarity that is disproportionate to its size. It will not look like the grand move you have been imagining. It will look ordinary. It may even look almost too simple. And that simplicity will be the thing that tempts you to dismiss it, to assume that something so undramatic cannot possibly be the beginning of what you have been believing for. But chosen one, this is exactly how appointed beginnings tend to arrive. Not with fanfare, not with a certainty that requires no faith, with a quiet, clear, single step that asks you to trust it without being able to see what comes after it. When that step presents itself, and it will present itself, take it. The rest of the path reveals itself to people who are walking, not to people who are standing still waiting for the full map before they begin. The third area is resources and opportunities, and this is where I need you to hear something that may be genuinely new to you, or may be something you have heard before but have not yet been able to fully receive. The striving is ending. The era of having to fight for every inch, of having to push and hustle and leverage and negotiate for every single thing that came to you, of having to work twice as hard as others to make half as much progress, that era is completing itself. What is coming in this new season does not have the texture of striving. It has the texture of what the ancient text calls being led beside still waters, of what those who have walked through to the other side of a long season describe as things beginning to flow rather than having to be forced. This does not mean passivity. It does not mean sitting still and waiting for resources to fall from the sky without any participation on your part. It means that your participation is going to change in quality. Instead of pushing against resistance, you are going to find yourself moving with something. Instead of fighting for a seat at tables that were not designed for you, you are going to find yourself being invited to tables that were. Instead of having to convince people of your value, you are going to encounter situations where your value is recognized before you have to articulate it. The opportunities that are coming are not opportunities you will have to chase. They are opportunities that are going to find you because you are now aligned with the frequency that attracts them, and because the season of your positioning has made you precisely the right person for precisely the right moment. Now I want to talk about what not to do during this transition, because the arrival of a new season also carries its own specific temptations. And chosen ones who have waited long for what is coming can sometimes, in the excitement and relief of finally feeling movement, make choices that work against the very thing that is beginning. Do not rush. I know that after a long waiting season, the instinct when things begin to move is to grab everything that starts to appear and move as fast as possible to make up for lost time. Resist that instinct. The pace of this new season is not the frantic pace of someone compensating for delay. It is the assured pace of someone who knows that what is theirs cannot be taken from them and does not need to be chased. Do not explain yourself to everyone. Not everyone in your current circle will understand the changes that are beginning to happen in your life, and not everyone needs to. There will be a temptation to justify your new direction, to make it palatable to people whose understanding of your story has been formed by watching you in the waiting season. Release that need. Your assignment is not to help everyone understand your transition. Your assignment is to walk faithfully into it. Do not go back. There will be moments in this new season where the familiar heaviness of the old season calls to you, where something in you is tempted to retreat to the smallness that at least felt certain. Do not go back. The threshold is behind you now. What is ahead is already better than what you are leaving, even when it does not yet fully look like it. If everything I am describing in these 3 areas is landing in a place inside you that feels like recognition, if something in you is saying yes to the relationships, to the purpose, to the resources, to the specific warnings about what not to do right now, I want you to type the words "I receive" in the comments below. Not as a performance, as a declaration, as the act of a person who is choosing, in this moment, to receive what heaven has already released over their life. Type it. Let it be the first act of the new season. You just did something that matters more than you may realize. When you type those 2 words, or even when you simply felt them rise up inside you without typing them, something shifted in the posture of your inner life. You moved, even if only by a fraction, from the posture of someone who is waiting to receive into the posture of someone who is already receiving. And that shift, small as it may seem, is not a small thing in the economy of heaven. It is the cracking open of a door that has been standing closed for a very long time. It is the unclenching of a fist that has been holding on so tightly for so long that the hand had almost forgotten what it felt like to be open. And so now, in the space that opening has created, I want to give you something. A name, not a label, not a category, a true name, the kind that names not just who you have been, but who you are becoming, the kind that carries within it both an acknowledgement of the journey and a declaration of the destination. The name I want to give you today is this: you are a cycle breaker. I want you to sit with that for a moment before I explain it, because a name like this deserves to be received slowly. It deserves space. A cycle breaker is not simply someone who had a hard life and survived it. That description, while true, is too small for what this name actually contains. A cycle breaker is someone who was placed at a specific point in a generational line, in a family story, in a community narrative, with the specific assignment of being the person in whose life a pattern that has repeated for generations finally stops. The cycles that have moved through your lineage, the cycles of not enough, of being overlooked, of striving without arriving, of giving more than receiving, of loving people who could not love you back in the way you deserved, of carrying responsibility that was not originally yours to carry. These cycles did not stop with your parents or your grandparents, because your parents and your grandparents did not have what you have. They did not carry the specific depth of awareness, the specific capacity for reflection, the specific willingness to feel the full weight of what needed to be felt, rather than simply passing it forward to the next generation the way it had been passed to them. You are the one who stopped and looked at it. You are the one who refused to simply perpetuate what was handed to you without examining it. You are the one who was willing to sit in the discomfort of transformation rather than the comfort of repetition. That is not an ordinary thing. That is a cycle breaker. And the waiting season you have been in, as painful as it has been part of the process of breaking the cycle at its deepest root rather than simply at its surface. You have not been just rearranging the furniture of an old pattern. You have been pulling the pattern up by its roots, and that kind of work takes the kind of time and the kind of depth that you have been inside. A cycle breaker does not just change their own life. They change the lives of everyone who comes after them. The children who will know you. The people who will be influenced by who you become on the other side of this season. The ones who will watch how you walked through this and be given permission by your example to believe that they can walk through their own version of it too. You are not just writing your own story. You are rewriting the story of everyone connected to you. And that is a weight of purpose that is worthy of every single day this season has cost you. Now I want to take you somewhere. I want to guide you through a brief experience that I believe is going to make everything we have talked about today feel not just true, but real in your body. Not just understood in your mind, but felt in the place where you actually live. I want you to close your eyes if you are able to do so safely. If you are driving or in a context where closing your eyes is not safe, simply soften your gaze and let your peripheral vision blur gently. Take one breath that is slower and deeper than the ones you have been taking. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let the weight of your body settle into whatever is holding you right now. Now I want you to picture yourself standing at a threshold. It is a doorway, though not necessarily a literal one. It may look like the entrance to a room filled with warm, quiet light. It may look like the top of a long staircase you have just finished climbing. It may look like the edge of a landscape that is opening out before you in a way that feels both vast and safe at the same time. Whatever image comes naturally to you, stay with it. Let it be specific. Let it have texture and light and temperature. You are standing at this threshold, and I want you to feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel how solid it is. Feel how it is holding you completely, without requiring any effort from you, without asking you to do anything to earn the right to stand here. You are here. You are held. The ground is real. Now I want you to slowly turn and look back at the path that brought you to this threshold. You do not have to stare into it or relive every moment of it. Just let your gaze rest gently on the distance you have traveled. Let yourself see the length of the road. Let yourself acknowledge, without judgment, how far you have come. The seasons that were dark, the stretches that seemed to go nowhere, the moments where the path disappeared entirely and you had to feel your way forward in the dark. Let all of that be visible to you for just a moment, not as an accusation and not as a wound to be reopened, but as evidence. Evidence of your own resilience. Evidence that you were always being carried, even when you felt most alone. Evidence that the path, as winding and as costly as it was, brought you here, to this threshold, to this specific ground beneath your specific feet on this specific day. You see it now. You see the whole of it from here, and something in you that has been bracing against the memory of it is beginning to soften, because from this threshold you can see that nothing was wasted. Not the dark seasons, not the years that felt empty, not the mornings that required everything you had just to get through them. All of it was the path, and the path brought you here. Now slowly let your gaze move forward. Turn away from the distance you have traveled and look at what is in front of you. The threshold is behind you now. You have already crossed it. You did not cross it in a dramatic moment of triumph with music playing and light flooding in. You crossed it quietly, in the ordinary moment of this ordinary day, in the simple act of showing up and receiving what this message has been carrying, and what is in front of you now, what is waiting in the space beyond. The threshold is not a vague promise or an uncertain hope. It is the appointed season, the Kairos moment, the culmination of the Kava process. It is the life that the cycle breaker in you has been making space for through every day of the long road behind you. Look at it. Not with the exhausted eyes of someone who has been waiting too long, but with the new eyes of someone who has just crossed a threshold they have been moving toward their whole life. It is real. It is yours. And you are already standing inside it. Take a breath. Come back slowly to the room you are in. You did not go somewhere else just now. You saw where you already are. And now, I want to close this section with something that is not a theological statement and not an instruction and not a call to action. I want to close it with a blessing, the kind that is simple and personal and meant to be received rather than analyzed. May the exhaustion that brought you to this moment be the last exhaustion of the old season and the first rest of the new one. May the grief you have carried for the things the waiting took from you be transformed, not erased but transformed, into a compassion for others who are still in the middle of their own long road. May the faith you maintained through the years when faith was the hardest thing you did be returned to you, multiplied, so that believing comes more easily in this new season than it has in any season before. May the relationships that are coming find you open and unguarded in the way that only someone who has been genuinely broken and genuinely healed can be open. May the purpose that has been forming in you through all of this be released now, without the striving, without the without the need for anyone's permission or validation. May you walk into the appointed time with the full knowledge that you were made for it, and it was made for you. May you know in the deepest possible way that you are not alone, that you have never been alone, that the one who placed the call on your life has been present in every moment of the road that brought you here, including the moments that felt most forsaken. You are a cycle breaker. You are chosen, you are held, and you are home. The blessing I just spoke over you was not a poetic conclusion to what came before it. It was a commissioning. It was the kind of words that are spoken over someone, not to send them into rest, but to send them into motion. The kind of words that settle into the deepest part of a person and become the foundation from which they begin to act. And so now, in this part of our time together, I want to move from the interior landscape we have been walking through together into the practical, tangible, real-world territory of what you actually do next. Because chosen ones are not just people who have profound interior experiences. They are people who bring those interior experiences into contact with the actual world they inhabit. They are people who take what heaven has placed in them and let it change the way they show up in the specific, ordinary, sometimes messy details of their daily life. So here is the question I want to answer for you right now. What do you do today? Not in the abstract, not in the someday of a future season that has not yet arrived, but today, in the actual hours that remain in this actual day. What does a cycle breaker do with the 24 hours that follow a moment of genuine threshold crossing? The answer begins with something very small and very powerful, and it is this: you write it down. Before you do anything else, before you close this video and return to the logistics of your ordinary life, I want you to take something that you can write on: your phone, a piece of paper, the back of an envelope, anything. And I want you to write down 3 things. First, one relationship that you are going to release with gratitude in the coming season. Not a person you are going to cut off dramatically or treat unkindly, but a connection that you know in your honest heart has reached the natural end of its assignment in your story, and that you have been holding on to past its season out of guilt or habit or fear of the space that releasing it would create. Write that name down, not to do anything with it today, but to acknowledge to yourself that you see it, that you are willing to release it, and that you trust what heaven is making room for. Second, write down the one small step that I told you would present itself with a clarity disproportionate to its size. If it has not yet presented itself, write down the area of your life where you have been feeling the most internal pressure. The area where something in you has been saying, there is something here that needs to move. That pressure is the step presenting itself. It may not yet have the form of a clear action, but writing down the area is the beginning of the form finding itself. Sometimes clarity does not precede action. Sometimes action precedes clarity, and the act of writing something down is a small enough action to unlock the clarity that follows it. Third, write down one thing you are going to stop doing that belongs to the old season. One way of coping, one habit of self-protection, one pattern of behavior that served you well in the waiting season, but that you know is not designed for the season you are entering. This might be the habit of minimizing your own needs before anyone else can dismiss them. It might be the pattern of over-explaining yourself in situations where your gifts and your value should be allowed to speak without the cushion of your own preemptive justification. It might be the practice of making yourself smaller in rooms where you were actually meant to take up your full space. Whatever it is for you specifically, write it down, and then, in the simplest possible act of symbolic release, draw a line through it, not angrily, gently. The way you would close a door on a room you are grateful for but are no longer living in. Those 3 things, written down in the next few minutes, are the first practical act of the new season. They are small. They are supposed to be small. The power is not in their size. The power is in the intentionality they carry and in the declaration they make to every part of you, conscious and unconscious, that the crossing has happened and the new season has begun. Now let me describe in very specific terms what the transformation of these 3 areas of your life is going to look like as this new season unfolds. Because I think you deserve more than a vague promise that things are going to get better. I think you deserve the specific picture of what better actually looks like on the ground. In your relationships, the transformation is going to feel at first like loss and then like liberation. The people who are releasing from your circle will do so in ways that, if you are watching with the eyes of the new season, will feel less like abandonment and more like a natural completion. You will notice that the grief of those partings is shorter and cleaner than the grief of relationships you have lost in the past, because you will have the context to understand what is happening. You will know that a clearing is not a loss. And then, in the space that the clearing creates, the new connections will begin to appear. They will appear in ordinary places, in a conversation you did not expect to have, in a message from someone you have not spoken to in a while, in a chance meeting in a location that had no logical reason to bring you into contact with that person. These connections will have an ease to them that the strained connections of the waiting season did not have. They will not require you to perform or to justify or to manage impressions. They will simply require you to show up as yourself, and that will be enough. In fact, it will be more than enough. It will be exactly what the connection was waiting for. The transformation in your sense of purpose is going to unfold in a way that I want to prepare you for, because it will be both more gradual and more certain than you might expect. You will not wake up one morning with the full blueprint of your purpose laid out before you in perfect detail. What you will wake up with, increasingly, is a felt sense of rightness about certain directions and a felt sense of wrongness about others, a kind of internal compass that has been recalibrated by everything you have walked through, and that now points more reliably toward your true north than it ever did before the waiting season. Trust that compass. When something feels right in the deep place, the place beneath logic and beneath the opinions of people around you, move toward it. When something feels wrong in that same deep place, even if it looks attractive on the surface, and even if the people around you cannot understand your hesitation, honor the hesitation. Your inner compass has been refined by fire, and it is more accurate now than it has ever been. The The specific question of what you are supposed to be doing with your life will answer itself not in a single revelation, but in a sequence of small, clear steps, each one revealing itself only after the previous one has been taken. This is the nature of the path in the new season. It is not a map given all at once. It is a light that illuminates exactly as far as you need to see to take the next step, and then illuminates a little further when that step has been taken. The chosen ones who walk most fully into their purpose in this season are the ones who develop the capacity to live comfortably inside that progressive revelation, who do not demand to see the whole road before they begin walking, who trust that the next step, when taken, will always reveal the one that follows. In your resources and opportunities, I want to be very specific about something that is going to happen that may initially confuse you, because it will be so different from what you have been accustomed to. Things are going to begin arriving that you did not work to manufacture. I do not mean that you will not be working, or that effort will no longer be part of your life. I mean that the ratio of effort to result is going to shift in a way that will feel almost disorienting after the long season of having to push so hard for so little movement. You will put something out into the world, an idea, a conversation, a piece of work, a simple act of showing up, and what comes back to you will be disproportionate to what you put in. Not because you are suddenly doing something different, but because the season has shifted and the ground is now fertile in a way that the desert season was not. Watch for the unexpected financial blessing that arrives from a direction you did not anticipate. Watch for the door that opens in a professional context without you having had to fight your way through it. Watch for the person who offers what you need before you have finished explaining that you need it. These are not coincidences. They are the Kairos harvest of the Kava season. They are the appointed resources arriving in the appointed time for the appointed person. And I want to give you one specific piece of advice about how to handle these arriving resources, because the way you receive them matters as much as the fact that they arrive. Receive them without guilt. Receive them without the reflex of making yourself small or immediately redistributing what comes to you before you have allowed yourself to fully take it in. Receive them with the open hands that this entire message has been inviting you toward. Because the cycle breaker who cannot receive is a cycle breaker who interrupts the very flow they were meant to carry. The abundance that is coming through you is also meant to come to you. Both things are true at the same time. You are a channel, and you are also a recipient. You are meant to overflow, and you are also meant to be full. There is one more practical thing I want to say before we move into the final part of this message. And it is perhaps the most important practical instruction of everything I have shared today. Protect your peace. In this transitional season, when the old is releasing and the new is arriving, peace is your most valuable resource. More valuable than any strategy, more valuable than any connection, more valuable than any opportunity. Your peace is the environment in which everything else grows. Guard it with an intentionality that may initially feel almost selfish to the part of you that has been trained to give everything away. It is not selfish. It is stewardship. The person who protects their peace is the person who has something real to offer to the world. The person who allows their peace to be constantly invaded and depleted by every voice that demands access to it arrives at the door of their appointed season with nothing left to bring through it. So set the boundaries that your peace requires. Say the no that your peace requires. Create the space that your peace requires, and do not apologize for any of it. You are a cycle breaker. Cycle breakers protect what they have been given to carry. We have traveled a long way together in this message, And before I say anything else, I want to take a moment to thank you in a way that is honest rather than polite. Because there is a difference between the kind of thank you that is offered as a formality at the end of a presentation, and the kind of thank you that comes from a genuine recognition of what it costs someone to show up. And I know what it cost you to show up here today. You did not arrive at this message from a place of ease. You did not click here because everything in your life was working perfectly and you had some spare time to fill. You came here because something in you was looking for something. A word, a confirmation, a voice that could name what you have been carrying without requiring you to explain it from the beginning. You came here with the weight of a season that has been long, with a tiredness that goes deeper than physical, with a hope that has been tested more times than you care to count, and has somehow, against all reasonable odds, refused to die completely. You came here with all of that, and you stayed. You did not click away when the message got heavy. You did not skip ahead when it asked you to sit with something uncomfortable. You stayed for all of it, and that staying is not a small thing. That staying is, in fact, the thing that has always set you apart. The capacity to remain present in difficult territory, to keep showing up, even when showing up feels like the hardest possible choice, to stay connected to something you cannot yet fully see. That capacity is the mark of the chosen one, and you have been demonstrating it your entire life, long before today, long before this message, in every season that asked more of you than you thought you had to give, and found that somehow, beneath the exhaustion, there was always just a little more. I want you to know something that I mean with the full weight of everything this message has carried. You are not alone. Right now, in this exact moment, as these words reach you wherever you are in the world, there are chosen ones on every continent, in every time zone, in cities and in small towns and in quiet rooms just like the one you are sitting in, who are receiving this same message. They are carrying what you are carrying. They are at the threshold you are standing at. They are feeling the same mixture of exhaustion and hope, the same grief about what the waiting has cost, the same quickening sense that something is finally beginning to move. You are surrounded even in your solitude. The community of chosen ones who are walking into this exact same season is larger than you can see from where you are standing, and you are not the outlier among them. You are the norm. This is what chosen ones look like in the moment before the appointed time arrives. This is what the cycle breaker looks like at the threshold. This is exactly where you are supposed to be. Now I want to do something with you. Before we close, I want to invite you into one final act that I believe will mark this moment in a way that your ordinary life can carry forward. It is a simple act. It does not require anything from you that you do not already have. It simply requires your willingness. I want you to imagine, right now, that you are standing at that threshold again, the one we visited together in the visualization exercise earlier in this message. You are at the doorway between what has been and what is coming. The road behind you is visible. You can see its length and its difficulty and its cost. And the space ahead of you is open and lit and waiting. Now I want you to take everything you brought with you to this threshold, and I want you to set it down. Not throw it away. Not pretend it does not exist. Simply set it down. The grief about the years. Set it down at the threshold. The exhaustion that has been sitting in your chest like a stone for longer than you want to admit. Set it down. The fear that you might have missed something, that you might have gotten something wrong, that the promise might not be for you after all. Set it down. The weight of being the strong one, the one who holds everything together for everyone else, while quietly falling apart in private. Set it down. The old self-image, the one that was formed in the waiting season, the one that sees you as someone who is always almost arriving but never quite there. Set it down, all of it, every piece of it, right there at the threshold. You do not need to carry any of it into what is next, not because it was not real. It was real. Every bit of it was real, and every bit of it mattered, and every bit of it was part of what made you who you are. But who you are is not the weight you carried to become it. Who you are is what that weight produced in you. The depth, the compassion, the resilience, the capacity to hold space for others who are in their own versions of the desert season, because you know from the inside what the desert is like. The unshakable, tested, refined faith that is not the naive faith of someone who has never been through anything, but the hard-won faith of someone who went through everything and came out the other side, still believing. That is what you are carrying into what is next, not the weight. The gold, set the weight down. Pick up the gold. Step forward. I want to speak to the part of you that has been the most faithful and the least celebrated. The part that got up on the mornings when everything in you wanted to stay down. The part that prayed when it felt like the prayers were going nowhere. The part that kept believing when the evidence pointed in every other direction. The part that held the dream carefully through all the seasons when speaking it out loud felt too vulnerable. I want to speak to that part of you directly and tell it something that it deserves to hear. You dwell. You did not do it perfectly. There were days when the doubt won, and days when the grief took over, and days when the faith flickered so low it was almost invisible. But you did not let it go out. And that refusal to let the flame go completely dark even in the hardest weather, that is the thing that heaven honors. Not perfection, faithfulness. And you have been faithful in ways that no one around you has fully seen, in ways that may not even be fully visible to yourself, but they are seen. They have always been seen. And the season that is beginning now is, amongst other things, the season of that faithfulness being honored. Now I want to ask you something, and I want to ask it gently, because I know that chosen ones in a waiting season can sometimes develop a complicated relationship with asking for and receiving support. But this channel, this space, these messages, they exist because of a community of people who believe that words like these need to keep reaching the ones who need them. And the only way that continues to be possible is if those who have been genuinely served by what they receive here are willing to participate in making it available to others. If this message reached something real in you today, if something shifted, if something was named that needed naming, if you are leaving this message with something you did not have when you arrived, I want to gently invite you to consider supporting this work. Not for me, not as a transaction, but so that this message can reach another chosen one who is waking up into their Monday morning without anyone to name what they are carrying. Another person who is sitting in the exhaustion of their waiting season and wondering if they are the only one. Another cycle breaker who is standing at a threshold they do not yet recognize as a threshold. Your support, whatever form it takes and whatever amount feels right for you in this season, becomes the means by which this message finds them. There is a link available for those who feel moved to give, and if you are one of those people, your generosity is received with genuine gratitude, and nothing will be taken for granted. And if today is not the right time for that, there is something else that costs nothing, but that carries enormous power. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. A friend who has been in a long waiting season. A family member who has been carrying more than they let on. Someone in your circle who you know is standing at a threshold they cannot yet name. Share it with them without a long explanation. Simply send it and let the message do what it was designed to do. Subscribe to this channel so that when the next message comes, it finds you without you having to go looking for it. Because there is more coming. There is always more coming for the ones who stay in the room. And before we close completely, I want to mention one more time the resource that I placed before you in the middle of this message, not to pressure you, not to create urgency that feels manufactured, but because I genuinely believe it belongs in the hands of every chosen one who is serious about functioning at the full capacity they were designed for. The genius wave met you somewhere in the middle of this message today. And if something in you recognized it, if something in you said yes, when we talked about the 7 minutes and the theta brainwaves and the neurological preparation for the Kairos moment, if that yes is still sitting in you right now, it is waiting for you in the pinned comment. Below, it is there. And so is the 90-day guarantee that means there is nothing to lose in finding out what it does in your life. The link is in the pinned comment. It will be there when you are ready. And now, before you go, I want to leave you with something final. Something that is not information and not instruction and not a call to action. Something that is simply a word spoken over you as you step away from this threshold and into the open ground of what is next. You came here today, carrying something heavy, and you are leaving lighter than you arrived, even if you cannot fully feel that yet. The shift happened. It was real. It is already working in you in ways that your conscious mind will catch up to in the hours and days ahead. Trust that. Trust the process that is already in motion. Trust the one who has been writing your story through every season you have walked through, including this one, especially this one. You are not who you were when this season began. You are not who you were even when this message began. Something has moved in you today, and that movement is the beginning of everything that is coming. Walk forward, chosen one. The appointed time is now. Heaven has spoken. You have done enough. And now, at last, the one who placed the call on your life is taking over. All you have to do is let it happen. You are ready. You have always been ready. And the world that is waiting for the fully arrived version of you has been patient long enough. Go. Threshold is behind you now. There is a moment, just after a message like this one ends, where the noise of the world has not yet rushed back in, where it is still quiet enough to feel something that does not have a name, but that you recognize as real. Stay in that moment for just a breath longer than you normally would. Let it settle into you. Let the words find the places they were meant for. You do not have to understand everything that shifted today. You do not have to have a plan. You do not have to know exactly what comes next. You only have to know this. You were seen today. You were named. You were not stumbled upon by accident by a message that had nothing to do with you. You were led here on this day, in this season, because something that is greater than coincidence knew that you needed exactly what was waiting here. And what was waiting here was not just information or encouragement or a product recommendation or a spiritual framework. What was waiting here was a mirror that showed you not who you have been, but who you already are. The cycle breaker, the chosen one, the person standing at the threshold of their appointed time with gold in their hands and open palms and a heart that has finally, after everything, learned to receive. Walk gently into the rest of this day. You are held. You are known. You are loved in a way that the waiting season never managed to diminish, no matter how hard it tried. And that love is what is carrying you forward now into everything that has been, waiting for you on the other side of everything you have walked through. Go well, beloved. Go well.